Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake, and today we're talking about Returnal. Thanks for your patience on this one. We needed to take our time and get this right, spend some good time with it. This is the newest game from Finnish developer Housemarque, the people behind Nex Machina from 2017, Alien Nation from 2016, the awesome early PS4 game Resogun, all the way back to Super Stardust and other DOS games from the 90s. Returnal is their big bad first PS5 game. The action is bigger, the production values are crazier, the price is higher, and there's a lot with this one. Oh boy. First, before I jump in, as always, just so you know, this is spoiler free. Most of the gameplay and the stuff shown here is kept to the first few hours with decent progress, but believe me, from bosses to biomes, there are quite a few surprises you're going to want to discover for yourself. Also, another thing, shout out to people out there who still can't get their hands on a PS5, but maybe you're watching this. They're still tricky to get. We hear you. We just wanted to shine some light on those struggling to grab those next-gen consoles because of the shortages. If you're in that boat, at the very least, by the time you do end up getting your hands on a PS5, you have another game to look forward to, because Returnal is really satisfying and fun. It has a weird quirk or two and something that needs to be addressed with one big problem I'll get to, but ultimately, if this style of game is your thing, and that's very important, it has to be your thing, but if that's the case, then I think you're gonna really enjoy this game. So in it, you play as Celine. She's an astronaut seemingly on reconnaissance duty who accidentally crash lands on planet Atropos. With her ship pretty much wrecked, Celine then just ventures out into this mysterious planet, and ooh, surprise, surprise, she very quickly discovers, because this is a video game, not all is as it seems. You see, Celine quickly realizes that when you die, you start right back at the beginning, where your ship crashed. So it's a roguelite, Groundhog's Day type scenario, where the game chews you up and spits you out back at the start, where you lose your weapons, your main currency, and most attachments and stuff. The rules get crazy complicated really quick, but that's the name of the game here. Every time you start from square one, the environments and the encounters are all randomized, procedurally generated. So there's specific points and story points and little hub spots that are usually consistent, but you're generally getting new surprises, new areas, new challenges, and new gear every time. You shoot lots and lots of aliens in what is very much a third-person shooter mixed with a shmup or a bullet hell type game, and it's awesome and overwhelming, clearly. You do this through running, sprinting, a dodge dash, a jump, and of course, cool guns. You can ADS by holding the trigger down halfway thanks to the PS5 DualSense adaptive triggers, and pull it all the way down to access an alternate fire mode that has a cooldown. The game has weapons, all the main weapons typically overheat because sci-fi, so you don't run out of ammo, but you do have to let your gun cool down. And there's a little window of being able to hit fire again to have your gun fully refreshed, kind of like a Gears of War active reload type mechanic, and it's awesome. I love that kind of stuff. There's also an adrenaline system where the more enemies you kill without a hit, the more this builds up, and when it hits certain threshold levels, it grants you a stacking specific, really nice ability in a pinch, like being able to sense enemies better through walls or just getting better reloads. These abilities and effects are really useful, and it's just a slick, fun system once you get everything that's going on. The game does a good job of kind of peppering in little things in there that while you're mindlessly running around third-person shooting, you still have to think about. You also get like usable, consumable type items that either help or buff you or cause some damage on the battlefield, as well as access to a melee weapon pretty early on, depending on how fast you are, and it's like a space sword. As you progress, stuff like getting the melee weapon or other gadgets after you down bosses or get to certain areas, these little types of tricks and stuff that you can carry with you give you easier access to areas and can make your life slightly easier next cycle you have to replay after dying, like a grapple point style item and a bunch of other stuff. Having a little extra access to things when starting a new round can help you get back to your current point a bit quicker. There are openings and specific points that are permanent, and if you're using your items to access new optional stuff, and if you explore a bit before actually moving forward to where you gotta go, you can be geared up better than you were last time around. Of course, also with this type of game, sometimes it just helps to get really lucky. Sometimes the game will just throw you better stuff. Sometimes you'll be completely out of luck. Now, speaking of stuff, my God, there is so much like RNG and all that type of stuff here. If you love constantly finding new items and weighing the pros and cons and continually tweaking this buff, doing that while this gets a bonus, you're in luck here because there's a lot of that. You have things to attach yourself called parasites. These give you something and take something, like you have faster cooldowns, but you have a 10% resistance hit or something like that. There are augments that you can increase an associated stat. There are artifacts you pick up that give you good, usually passive effects. There's weapon proficiency, which you get from each defeated enemy or specific items that determines the minimum level of weapons you can pick up out in the field. There are currencies. The main one you can lose after you die, but that one you spend a lot to just grant access to stuff and take advantage of fabricators out in the field that will give you more good items that make your numbers do things. Then you also have the ether, which is like a currency, but that you can keep after you die. Ether does a couple of big specific things, like one of them allowing you to cleanse certain objects or treasure chests that have a sort of infection on them. That has a chance of malfunctioning or aka debuffing your character in a certain way. So if you don't have any ether, you can take a risk and hopefully just get something to help you out, but also just risk taking damage or having an annoying buff like enemies counter more or fall damage hurts you. It goes on and on. It can actually feel like gambling sometimes. Carefully manage your precious resources as you make your way across an area for the 10th time. Hope you get some good stuff. Maybe get desperate and try to open something that might hurt you, or spend a key that you picked up on something that might end up just giving you maybe a crappy weapon, or the best weapon. The important thing though with a lot of this that I like is that it also just makes the exploration feel rewarding. You know, there's tons of hidden stuff. Like I said, the more abilities you get, the more you can access, and there's optional doors around every corner, and there's always a surprise that might screw you over or might make your run much better and help you get past that pesky next boss that's blocking your progress to the next area. You're managing all this stuff and even more that I don't have time to get to simply get ahead of the pretty big challenges that the game can throw at you. There are a lot of numbers and stats, and managing stuff, I think maybe a little bit too much, but of course that's personal preference. You might love it. But either way, there's no denying that the core gameplay, to me, is fun as hell. Enemy types are cool and always surprising. Many random encounters can feel like a desperate endgame battle, and the bosses are just awesome. I absolutely love them. The first boss might be the big first gate that locks some people off. I've seen a lot of word on the street that the game is hard and how so many people, it took a while to get past that first boss. Maybe I just got lucky. The first boss I downed on my first try, but then again, I don't think it's because I'm very good or anything. I just think the game does a good job of onboarding you and easing you into the challenge. You know, it ramps up quick for sure, but it lets you get your feet wet for a minute. Believe me though, at some point or another, you will hit a wall. I know I did. Like I said, it's still pretty challenging overall, and I think it's going to be the main appeal of the game. I love the shooting. It feels great. Like, it's super responsive, other than the dodge, which is a little iffy sometimes, but running and gunning is great, and it makes you feel powerful and awesome, especially when there's crazy stuff going on screen and explosions. You know, it's always a feast for the senses. Everything moves at a breakneck pace. Particles are everywhere. You're dodging left and right. Your eyes are bleeding. But it can also be beautiful. You know, the biomes are cool and moody, and they just take some great inspiration from specific classic movie sci-fi stuff I really love, while still doing its own video game thing. Especially getting a sense of everything with the feedback the controller gives you. It's another really good PS5 game that really sells you on the concept of the DualSense controller and how it can actually just immerse you that tiny little bit more and give the gameplay and controls just an extra bit of function. But I need to backtrack to the difficulty again for a second. One of the big sticking points with this game for many is that you cannot save. Like, you can't get midway through a run and save and pick it up later. This is big for some because most runs tend to go on a long time, like maybe up to an hour. I didn't really time myself, depending on how you play. So like, and it's the type of unforgiving game where like one stupid move can set you back 45 minutes. The game recommends going into PS5 rest mode, which is weird for a game to do, especially since the PS5 rest mode and games crashing when it's in rest is something that isn't completely out of the question. It's like it's a little risky. Or hey, you know, what if the game just crashed out of the blue, which I have seen with some people getting really good progress in the game and then suddenly a crash totally screws them over. Some people might not be into this, you know, like this type of roguelite running, this type of difficulty, this type of risk, not being able to save, and the game could crash. Personally, I did learn to kind of just live with it and like it and embrace it. The act of dying after a good bit of progress or just a long, satisfying run makes me go, okay, I'll pick this back up later. Like, it feels like doing a run or doing a raid or doing a strike. You're gonna do it, and then you might not do anything and just leave the game. That's kind of how I've been treating Returnal. It makes bold choices that are not gonna work for everyone. The game's style itself already isn't gonna work for everyone. The save thing just narrows that category down even more. I can still totally recommend it. You know, it's cool and satisfying, but you gotta really know what you're getting into here. I hope you listen closely to this video and other videos. Chances are, if you're watching this, you are the type of player that does some research before you buy a cool game. Like with Returnal, you really got to know what you're getting into. You got to read up on this game and still be the type of player to be like, all right, cool, I want to deal with that. You got to want this one, but if you do jump in and learn the ropes and embrace it, you'll find some cool, mysterious sci-fi, interesting stories, some great presentation and sound and controller and graphics, and just fun white knuckle gameplay that legit made my hands sweaty. So yeah, Returnal is cool. There's definitely some big ifs for certain types of players, but ultimately it seems like a good ride. But of course, that's a before you buy. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. There's a lot of little ins and outs to discover about Returnal, including some random tips, like pro tip, do not enable notifications when the game starts. Another pro tip, the balanced blade thing, if you have the option to get that, that usually seems to help me out quite a bit. Also, you can sleep on your ship, and sometimes it might heal you. But if you got other tips like this, definitely let us know in the comments. We want to hear what you think about Returnal. We want to hear if you're enjoying it. But also, any newcomers, any newbies out there, definitely leave them some tips if you've been jumping in. If you enjoyed this video, though, and maybe we helped steer you in the right direction, or at least inform you of the game, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.